Neuroplasticity and purpose, how intentional service rewires your moral identity. The biological transformation. Hook, what if I told you that being a good person isn't a personality trait? It's a physical structure you build inside your skull. We love to believe empathy is enough, but passive sympathy leaves your brain unchanged. To truly reshape your moral identity, you have to move beyond feelings and into the physical discomfort of intentional service. Today, we're diving into the neuroscience of how altruistic labor literally strengthens your prefrontal cortex and turns abstract values into biological. Identity. Section 1, the hard truth about moral growth. Here's the hard truth. Most of your daily habits are reinforcing selfish neural pathways without you even realizing it. You can't think your way into becoming a better person. You have to act your way there. Every time you choose convenience over contribution, your brain strengthens the circuitry of self-interest. But every time you choose the harder path, the path of service, you're dismantling those old patterns and building a purpose-driven identity from the inside out. Section 2, the science, how service rewires the brain. Let's talk biology. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for moral reasoning, long-term planning, and impulse control. The amygdala is your survival center, reactive, self-protective, and primitive. When you engage in intentional service, the prefrontal cortex activates and overrides the amygdala's instinct to prioritize yourself. Over time, repeated acts of service strengthen these prefrontal pathways, making moral behavior easier, faster, and more automatic. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself through repeated action. And the research is getting even more compelling. Recent data shows that consistent altruistic behavior increases white matter integrity in regions tied to decision-making and emotional regulation. In other words, service doesn't just make you feel like a better person, it physically upgrades the wiring that determines who you are. Section 3, why discomfort is the catalyst. Here's the part most people avoid, the friction matters. The brain only rewires under challenge. Comfort doesn't create change, discomfort does. When you give your time, your energy, or your effort, your brain recognizes the strain and begins reorganizing itself. That's how you move from doing good to being good. Through long-term potentiation, repeated acts of service become automated. You stop performing kindness and start embodying it. Even your reward system shifts. Dopamine moves away from short-term gratification and toward long-term fulfillment. Helping others becomes intrinsically rewarding, not because you should, but because your brain now prefers it. Section 4, the resilience of a purpose-driven brain. A brain wired for service is a brain wired for resilience. Strengthened prefrontal circuits improve emotional regulation, making you more capable in trauma, conflict, and uncertainty. Service also increases cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt, problem, solve, and see from multiple perspectives. And perhaps most importantly, purpose becomes a psychological immune system. It protects you from loneliness, nihilism, and the chronic emptiness of modern life. When your identity is rooted in contribution, you create meaning, connection, and belonging. Section 5, practical engineering of your new moral self. So how do you build this new identity intentionally? 1. Move from sporadic kindness to structured service. Create a weekly rhythm, one predictable act of service, one spontaneous act, one stretch act that requires discomfort. 2. Build micro habits of service. Small daily actions teach your brain, this is who we are now. 3. Start today with one uncomfortable act, not something easy, not something convenient, something that requires effort, humility, or vulnerability. That moment of friction is the spark that begins your neural reorganization. Being a good person isn't a feeling. It's not a mood. It's not a personality trait. It's a physical structure you build inside your brain through intentional, consistent service. If you want to reshape your identity, start with one uncomfortable act of service today. Your brain and your life will reorganize around that choice.